Now, a lot of coaches think that you doing plyo is going to put you in the house of pain. Nah! You just got to learn how to jump around. Preach! Testify! I want to try and demystify plyo. Now, do you know what the most specific plyometric exercise that you can do for sprinting is? It's sprinting. I think it's time to launch a science time.
Science time.
If weights is a controlled eccentric concentric contraction, unless of course it's deadlift, and then it's a controlled concentric eccentric contraction, and Olympic weightlifting is an explosive concentric contraction with a very unloaded eccentric phase, then plyometrics is a controlled explosive eccentric concentric contraction. You quickly stretch the muscle by applying a force to it. That stores energy momentarily that you rapidly contract off to produce your power. That is it. And just like how weights in sprinting was influenced differently depending on whether you were east or west, the same goes for plyometrics. Plyometrics in the US means anything that involves springing, leaping, bouncing, jumping, just throwing your body around haphazard. And the pinnacle of this capitalist dream are these box jumps that I see all these CrossFit monkeys partaking in. Now, done correctly, it has an application to Olympic weightlifting. When done correctly. Plyometrics is a product. It's been packaged and sold. Plyometrics has been commercialized. But what I see oftentimes is the equivalent of a 5-plate quarter squat with a lot of grunting. They're setting the height higher and higher. And not because of love, if only. It's because it looks impressive. And the form, which I'm not sure they ever had, even at the lower heights, gets more and more ludicrous. And they essentially end up doing an exercise where you just shoot your feet up as fast as possible to your earlobes. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that's going to translate to. I don't know. Maybe competing against dogs in the ear-scratching Olympics. And in second place, it's Bunny the Beagle. Give him a round of applause. But in first place, it's Mike from Lizard CrossFit. So, what are you trying to actually achieve in plyometrics? It's about to get racial up in here. Now, this story's been historically massaged for the sake of illustration. Now, plyometrics is an exercise, conceptually, came out of a need to find a way to make the peoples who lived in and around the Caucasus Mountains, which are the steppes of Russia, known as the Caucasians, faster. Now, the Eastern Bloc wasn't really known for its racial diversity back then. And that's not a dig. I mean, they just weren't into that whole importing a nation's worth of people using dodgy import licenses. That's all. They were more like, hello, okay, you lot are all we got. So, when I say jump, you will say, da, niet Himierikien how high. So, Yuri Verkhoshansky, who was looking to make his nation swifter on the track, thought to himself, what is the essential element of running fast? He worked out back in the late 60s that you could only lay down power on the floor when your foot was in contact with the floor. The second you leave the floor, the dice has been rolled. And so then you've got to wait until your foot comes back down again before you get the chance to roll another 6. Now, if everything in sprinting happens from the time your foot touches the floor to the time that your foot leaves the floor, how long is that time? Well, it ranges from 0.2 seconds in slower sprinters to 0.08 seconds in the elite. Or, as Muhammad Ali would have said, 20 100ths to 8 100ths of a second. Just to fathom how fast this is, let's listen to the late great Muhammad Ali explain the speed that he threw a punch, which was 4/100ths of a second, and that's twice as fast as the speed that an Olympic level sprinter's foot hits the floor.
So you can break a second down to 100 pieces. So, you know, yeah, it's quick. So 4/100, they got a machine that goes like real quick, and it counts real quick, you know, real quick. And by the time that thing hit 4, that's how quick camera flash, that's 400 a second. Now, the minute I hit Sonny Liston, all of those people blinked at that moment. That's why they didn't see the problem. I swear. Now, if you watch the film close, you gotta hold your eyes.
So the longer you spend on the ground, the slower you are. And the point of plyometrics is to reduce the time that you spend on the ground, thus making you faster. That's it. Or make you faster at getting up off it. Bah! Exactly. That's the entire point. That's the raison d'etre. If you can go from da-da to da-da, job done. And the time you spend on the ground is called the amortization period, which is where your foot is as flat as a fish on the floor. Or not. It is debatable. It depends on who you're looking at and the speed of the camera that they're using. Mustering up the power to get back up off the floor again. Now imagine if you now train this magical speed off the floor and you are now at the 0.08 seconds. What would make you slower? Increasing the force on you that you had to resist in order to do the transition. Basically, coming down from a higher height. So think this through. If you're sprinting faster and you're getting more air time and you're going higher, you now got to resist more force when you land to then rebound it. So imagine you take 50 strides in the 100 meters, which is an average of 2 meters a stride. But to be fair, average stride is useless. You need to be thinking about peak stride and trough stride. So let's say you unleash a whopper of a peak stride. You go Neil Armstrong. But you can't control the re-entry back down to the floor. You've just lost the benefit. And that is the concept of incrementally improving in plyometrics. First, you're trying to decrease the touch time with very low height, fast touch time jumps. Then secondly, you're trying to keep that same super fast touch time as you increase the height, which mimics what happens when you run faster. You're hitting the ground with more force and you're trying to control and rebound it at the same speed. What you're not trying to do is climb up to the top of the highest structure that you can find and think that it's a win if you survive the fall.
So,
I mean, I've heard athletes bragging about doing plyos of a meter-plus box, when in reality, they spent so long on the floor from skydiving from that height, they had enough time to make a phone call and eat a sandwich. Anyway, Yuri found that the best exercise for this was depth jumps. Whoa, comrade! You said that the best pattern for sprinting was a 1-foot squat pattern or the lunge pattern. So why would a 2-foot pattern be best for plyometrics? What are you, working for the Washington Post? Trying to spread fake news? Well, I think the reason for this comes down to physical weakness. Yuri suggested that a person needed to be able to squat twice their body weight in order to be conditioned enough to do a plyometrics progression. Now, you know those Russians. If what I've witnessed on YouTube is to be believed, I don't think those guys have a word for half squat in their language. Screen. So the prerequisite strength level is a full squat with 130 to 140 kilos for a 65 to 70 kilo athlete. For 10. I don't know about the for 10. Probably for 10. The point being, you had to be yay strong from training in order to get the benefits of the plyo. If that's the sort of weight that you need in order to control the force off the box, is that the same sort of weight that you'd be able to do with one leg? When you jump off the box, just because you land on one leg, it doesn't mean that you're not still trying to control the entire force of your whole body. So that's why I think that he had such good results with 2-foot depth jumps. However, for those who are significantly strong, there are 1-foot versions, which I'll go into later, and also joint angle does play a part. Now let's head west and look at the US version of Plyometrics. West is best. Bear in mind, the crucial issue here is time on the floor. Doing reactive plyo in shoes that are made for stability, not reactivity. This is going to be a long one. This is going to be a lot of videos. The first thing I'm going to need to go through is the difference between explosive and reactive plyometrics. Next video I'm going to go into more plyo theory, and I'm going to start to answer the question which I know you're all going to be asking me, which is some variation on what's the best plyo exercise for ... So have no fear. Thanks guys if you busted me a thumbs up, because let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good. Bounce your ideas away in the comments bay, and if you like my vibe, please subscribe. Woo! Woo!